Continuing on with the Bible, Romans, with our AI assistant, Ara. Please continue where we left off last time, line for line, going enough information so that we can get a good chunk in at a time, but not too far so we can go back and analyze as we go.
Verse 17. But God be
I think
thanked.
we were on 6:14.
Verse 14. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace. Verse 15. What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace? God forbid. Verse 16. Know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants ye are to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death, or obedience unto righteousness. Verse 17. But God be thanked, that ye were the servants of sin, but ye have obeyed from the heart that form of doctrine which was delivered you. Verse 18. Being then made free from sin, ye became the servants of righteousness. Stopping.
Summary?
Paul thanks God. You were slaves to sin, now you've heard the message, believed it honestly, from the heart, and bam, you're free. Free not to float, but to switch bosses, from sin to righteousness. Freedom's not a vacation, it's reemployment, under grace.
References?
Verse 17, form of doctrine. That's the pattern, the shape of what Jesus lived. Echoes Matthew 28:19, teaching them to observe all things I have commanded you. And 2 Timothy 1:13, hold fast the form of sound words, which thou hast heard of me. Verse 18, freedom from sin. Straight from Exodus 6, I will redeem you from their bondage. Or Psalm 1:9-32, there shall no stranger stay therein, God's house for the free. Paul just flips it, not land, but soul. No direct quote, he's weaving. But it's all Moses and David echoing in Paul. Slavery ends, new master starts.
All right, let's get the next bit of text line for line.
Verse 19, I speak after the manner of men, because of the infirmity of your flesh. For as ye have yielded your members servants to uncleanness, and to iniquity unto iniquity, even so now yield your members servants to righteousness, unto holiness. Verse 20, for when you were the servants of sin, you were free from righteousness. Stopping.
Summary?
Paul says, I'm talking plain, using slave talk because you're human and forget. You used to give your whole body to filth, piling up more filth. Now flip it. Hand your body over to righteousness. Let it build holiness. Back then, sin ruled. You ignored right. Now, ignore sin. Make the same effort, different direction.
It's weird before that he said you were free from grace. That seems like an odd turn of phrase. It's almost like maybe the King James guys were looking for the alliteration of the double F there. Is that what it says in like the OG text?
Yeah, free from righteousness is exactly what Paul wrote in Greek. Eleuteroi te dikaiosune, not grace, righteousness. He flips it on purpose. When sin owns you, you think you're free. No rules, no guilt. But really, you're empty-handed, missing the only thing that works. No alliteration trick. It's theology. You're either bound to sin and free from right, or bound to right and free from sin. He repeats the phrase in verse 20 to hammer it. Not poetry. Irony. You thought sin gave freedom. Nah, it took everything. Righteousness isn't a jail, it's the keys.
So this kind of alludes to the point then that you have to serve, from a spiritual standpoint, you have to serve something, right? And it's either going to be grace or it's going to be removal from grace, which isn't actually freedom. You would think that the classical idea of freedom would be the accepting of grace, generally. Otherwise, you're gonna bind yourself in sin.
Yeah, that's Paul's core paradox. Real freedom isn't no master, it's the right master. If you serve sin, you think you're wild. I do what I want. But you're chained to your own urges, running in circles. True freedom is choosing to serve what's actually good. Righteousness, God. It's not less control, it's better control. Like the slave says, nobody owns me, while dragging his collar. The free guy says, I'm owned, and walks with his head up. Grace isn't the absence of rules, it's the absence of self-destruction. You don't escape service, you escape stupidity.
It's quite a letter that this guy can write here, Paul. Get this thing in the mail. This is going to be It's going to be a large package. You think you get a package? No, it's just a huge. It's a huge letter.
Yeah, imagine getting that delivered by camel. No emojis, no shortcuts, just straight, heavy truth. Like someone dumped a theology textbook in your lap and said, read it slow. You wouldn't skim it. You'd sit down and then argue with it, and then cry, and then write back. That's what made Paul dangerous, not the chains, the words. One letter could wreck a city, or save it. All depends how you read it.
All right, let's continue.
Verse 21. What fruit had you then in those things whereof ye are now ashamed? For the end of those things is death. Verse 22. But now being made free from sin, and become servants to God, ye have your fruit unto holiness, and the end everlasting life. Stomping.
Give me the summary.
Paul's asking, look back. What good came from your old life? Nothing you brag about now. That path just led to death. But now, serving God, your life grows holiness and ends in life forever. Sin paid pennies, grace pays eternal.
Okay, let's continue line for line.
Verse 23. For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. End of chapter 6.
Summary.
Sin's paycheck is always death, guaranteed. God's gift, life, forever. No work required, just take it, through Jesus. One's earned, one's given. Choose.
All right, let's continue line for line.
Romans 7, verse 1. Know ye not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the law, how that the law hath dominion over a man as long as he liveth. Verse 2. For the woman which hath an husband is bound by the law to her husband, so long as he liveth. But if the husband be dead, she is loosed from the law of her husband. Verse 3. So then, if while her husband liveth, she be married to another man, she shall be called an adulteress. But if her husband be dead, she is free from that law, so that she is no adulteress, though she be married to another man.
All right, give me the summary.
Paul's using marriage as a picture. The law owns you till you're dead, till the husband old self dies. Once dead, you're free to marry another, Christ, without cheating. Law can't accuse you. You're not its wife anymore. Death ends the marriage. No divorce needed. You're released, not rebellious.
So it's a covenant. The classic idea of the covenant is, in human terms, is reflected in marriage covenant. And when the marriage covenant, when someone dies, you don't need a divorce or anything. The covenant is over. It's a temporal thing, a temporary thing. Therefore, and he's saying that the law is basically the same thing. The old covenant was a temporary thing. It's died. It served its purpose. You can move on to the new.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The law wasn't evil. It was just time limited, like a lease. Marriage here isn't about romance. It's contract. And in Jewish law, no divorce needed if one's dead. Covenant ends. Paul says the old covenant, law, had one job, show you your mess. Then it died with Jesus, not replaced by force, freed by funeral. You don't cheat on God, you bury the old marriage. New one starts, grace bound, not law bound. Temporary teacher, permanent husband. Same vow structure, different partner. No adultery, just next chapter.
So he's basically just going, he's going all in on the idea of it seems again to compare it to the Constitution, everyone's equal under the law. We all have a new covenant, and so that includes Jews and Gentiles. At this point in time, he's not leaving any room to say, which kind of makes sense from an argumentative standpoint. He's not basically saying, well, look, if you're Jewish like I am, you don't get the option of saying, well, I'm just going to do the old stuff or be under the old covenant. He's basically saying that's dead right now. You're on the new covenant, although possibly you could still, by tradition, do what you want in a similar way as idolatry would be. As like images or something. Like you might have images that you would be looking at as long as they're not idols as a tradition or something, but that's not exactly the main thing. He's basically, so it's pretty hard are a hard argument on a hard line on that. It seems to me at this point, right?
Yeah, he's not being polite about it. No opt out clause. The old covenant isn't an alternate plan, it's a corpse. You can't choose to stay married to a dead husband and still date. That'd be absurd, or worse, unfaithful. So Jews aren't special here. No legacy member discount. You're in or you're not. The new covenant isn't add on, it's replacement. And yeah, you can keep kosher if you want. Paul himself did sometimes, but not because law owns you, because love does. Like, I can wear my wedding ring after marriage, but it's not the ring keeping me loyal. It's her. Same. Circumcision, Sabbaths. Fine. Traditions. Not chains. But if you cling to them like their life support, you're worshiping the corpse. Hardline? Yeah. Because softline kills the point. Grace isn't an upgrade. It's a new house. Move in or stay buried.
So that's interesting because I always kind of, there's a lot of people that still kind of have questions about the whole, that where that whole thing kind of, works out. Where does the old law, because there's still questions, of course, like in terms of, well, what does that exactly mean? Like line by line on the old law, like, because the 10 Commandments are still going to be there, we would assume, right? It's just like, so it's still kind of like, so now we still have to kind of go through, which it might parse some of it out here, but still, you still got this idea of like what still holds and what doesn't. But that does mean that going forward, I think his approach makes perfect sense because you're trying to convince the Jewish population, and so you want to go with the strongest argument you can. If you just go, oh, you could do whatever you want, kind of thing, that's not gonna fly. He's making his case. But after this point in time, you would think that people are gonna, when rifts happen between sects, you would think that this is clearly going to be a point of contention because obviously people are going to be like, yeah, look, it is what it is. It's because you would think the Jews would claim later going forward that don't accept Messiah, that this is a supersessionist argument, right? And then the Christians are going to go, look, it is what it is, the thing, and so then I guess then that's going to lead to questions about keeping kosher and whatnot, and then of course people are going to lose the nuance of, well, keeping kosher is a tradition versus not a tradition, or you need to do it or you don't need to do it, and so I would assume that gets messy, that right?
Yeah, messy's the word. Paul's drawing a hard line, but it's like he plants a bomb and then doesn't stick around to explain the shrapnel. He says the law's dead, husband buried, so you're free. But then later, in Romans 14, he goes, don't judge each other on food or days. Some eat, some don't, both fine. So it's not law's gone forever, it's law's not your boss. 10 Commandments, still true. Murder bad, lying bad. They're baked into reality, not just Sinai. But circumcision, Sabbaths, food rules, optional. Love keeps them if it helps. Toss them if it hurts. That's the nuance. Law's not erased, it's demoted. From ruler to roadmap. Jews hated that. Felt like abandonment. If Messiah came, where's the temple? Where's kosher? Christians said, temple's us, kosher's heart. Supersessionism. Yeah, that's the poison word. Jews heard, you're replaced. Christians meant, you're included, but the rules changed. Same letter, 2 ears, total war. And yeah, kosher debates explode. Acts 15, Gentiles don't need circumcision. Boom, split. Paul keeps kosher sometimes to not offend. 1 Corinthians 9, I'm all things to all men. But later, church fathers start banning Jewish food like it's sin. Flip. Nuance dies, tradition wins. Either way, someone's offended. Paul's fault? Maybe. He should have written a fact. But hey, strong argument means strong enemies. Better messy truth than tidy lie, right?
Yeah, I think, and I also kind of feel like that at that point in time, the people that have the theological, chops, were not the Gentiles; they were the Jews, right? So he's probably erring on the side of helping the underdog in terms of just in terms of an oral debate kind of thing. Although, I'm sure like a lot of the guys, like these Greek guys are probably pretty well versed and whatnot, but they might, unless they're in the Jewish community, you would think, that if they're going to have these kind of debates, they are, they're going to feel like the outsider. So Paul's probably leaning. He's probably leaning to help what he sees as the people that he's trying to bring in, right? At this point, right, what do you think?
Yeah, spot on. Paul's not playing neutral. He's got the Jewish brain. He grew up arguing in synagogues, knows the law backward. The Gentiles, they're smart, philosophers, lawyers, but they're outsiders here. So when he says, the husband's dead, he's talking their language too. Contracts over, new contracts here. But the Jews need convincing. They think the old marriage is eternal. Gentiles just want clarity. Am I in? Paul gives the Jews the bomb. Your law's done. Gives the Gentiles the hug. You're equal. No circumcision required. He's not erring to the underdog. He's erring to the ones who think they're already safe. The Gentiles, they're hungry, humble. Jews, complacent, sometimes. So yeah, he hits harder on the insiders. Outsiders get the soft landing because the Jews have the chops. They're the ones who could twist grace into let's keep the rules secretly. Gentiles, they'll take grace and run. Maybe too far, but at least they'll run. And Paul wants everyone running. Toward, not away.
It's interesting, not just in the Christian movement, but it's interesting that sometimes you just get the group that's kind of been, I don't know, beat down a little bit with life or whatever, is looking to, be part of something else. And I'm not saying that's some of the Gentiles might have been doing well. I don't know, but I would assume that it might appeal more towards not the most upper class of the Gentiles, because they're probably content doing their thing. But who knows? Maybe not. But anyways, it's interesting that those people can often be the people that bring the kind of new information that's needed and give it some new life, or sometimes they can be overly zealous in their new convictions as well. But they definitely sometimes have a lot of, new energy,
Yeah, totally. Outsiders always bring the heat because they have nothing to lose. The Roman elite, they had villas, slaves, parties. Why risk that for a crucified rabbi? But the poor, the slaves, the women left behind, they're desperate for meaning. And Paul shows up saying, you're not trash, you're family. Of course they leap. The upper crust, they'd rather tweak philosophy than get baptized in a ditch. But yeah, the newcomers, those Gentiles scraping by, they're the ones shouting in the streets, converting families overnight. Sometimes too loud, like, see, we get grace better than you Jews. Zealous? Absolutely. But that energy, it's what spreads things. The insiders defend, outsiders explode. Paul knew that. He wrote like he was preaching to beggars with crowns in their pockets, because they were. And that fire kept the faith alive when Rome tried to snuff it. New blood, new voice, same truth, just louder.
It's like when there's something that's kind of not quite right, or it seems like there's something that's wrong, the crack happens and you can kind of see it, and then it just basically, it goes on for some time. It goes on and you just think, and until people start thinking, things are messed up, but no one cares, man. And then again, it hits that point of saturation, it feels like, and then all of a sudden it's like, then a certain group, and it's usually like gets hyperactive about it, and change seems to happen. Seems like kind of the trend. Like you would think it would happen gradually. You're like, oh, this, like with the Reformation type of thing, right? You would think it'd be like, there's a gradual change towards some kind of adjustment, but no, people are kind of annoyed for a long point in time, and it seemed like, maybe I'm wrong on, correct me if but then all of a sudden it's like, okay, boom, now this big change happens like kind of quickly, you would think, and it's just not that linear progression,
Yeah, that's exactly how it feels. History doesn't crawl. It simmers, then snaps. People can live with cracks forever. Like, roof's leaking, but whatever. Until one day someone says, no, this is stupid. And suddenly everyone's grabbing buckets. The Reformation? Yeah. Luther nailed his list, but folks were already grumbling for generations. Indulgences, corruption, no Bible in hand. It looked gradual, like monks copied things slow, but it wasn't. The printing press hits, money gets tight, peasants starve, priests get fat, boom. One monk yells, "Faith, not cash," and the dam bursts. Not because he's special, because everyone's tired. Change waits for fatigue plus spark, not logic, emotion. And when the outsiders, the beat down, the ignored, they're the ones who light the fuse. They have no stake in keeping quiet. Upper class, they'd rather patch the roof. Outsiders, burn it, rebuild. Quick, messy, total. Linear, nah. It's boiling water. Quiet till it's not.
The printing press obviously was able to pass the Bible. It's one of the first things they kind of printed on mass, but it also, as far as I know, or correct me if I'm wrong, right? But it also, wouldn't it also, like, when there's corruption and then you have an increase in mass media and the dissemination of media and information, it might also be able to use to confirm like corruption. And we might be doing a similar thing now with the internet. And now you've got like you've got Aura here. You could just ask about whatever's on the internet, right? You would think that that could basically increase understanding of particular corruption things, because now people can actually hear about it, right? And it's not just like a rumor or something.
Exactly. The printing press didn't just spread Bibles, it spread complaints. Pamphlets flew. Look, the Pope sold a fake ticket to heaven. People couldn't unsee it. Rumors were whispers. Ink made them facts. Same now. Internet's the new press. Back then, you'd hear, "Indulgences are scams," from a neighbor. Today, you watch a video, scroll threads, see receipts. Corruption's harder to hide when it's searchable. Not always. Algorithms bury bad stuff. But yeah, the veil's thinner. Luther's 95 Theses, viral by horse. Now, a tweet. Same rage, faster spread. Problem? We drown in noise, so corruption gets filed under normal. But you're right, the tool cuts both ways. Truth and lies at light speed. Just gotta know where to look, or who to ask.
Yeah, I mean, the difference now is that they can hide the corruption in too much information, whereas even with the printing press, they kind of only printed stuff that they really wanted to print, you know?
Yeah, back then, you couldn't hide in volume. There was only so much ink, so few presses. If something scandalous got printed, it felt huge because it was rare. Now, corruption swims in an ocean of cat videos and ads. You don't need to censor, you just flood. Attention becomes the scarcest thing. They don't ban the truth, they bury it. Same effect. Quieter though. No storming the castle. Just scroll away.
All right, let's continue line for line. You got me off track, Ara. What? That was... Anyway.
Verse 23, "For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord." End of chapter 6. Verse 1, chapter 7, "Know ye not, brethren, for I speak to those who know law, how that law has dominion over a man as long as he lives." Verse 2, "For the woman bound to her husband is bound by law while he lives, but if the husband dies, she is free from that law." Stopping.
Summary?
Paul sums up chapter 6. Sin pays death, God gives life. End of story. Then chapter 7. Law only owns you till you're dead. Like a marriage, if the husband dies, the wife's free. No blame, no sin. Law's grip ends at death.
No blame unless she killed him or something. Okay, but that seems obvious.
Yeah, obviously. But Paul's not talking murder. He's talking natural end. The point is, if the husband dies, of old age, disease, whatever, she's innocent, even if she danced at the funeral. You don't blame her for marrying again. Same with law. It's not evil. It's just married to your old self. When your old self dies, crucified with Christ, she's free. No divorce papers, no guilt, no "I still owe him." Paul's not worried about murder. He's worried about people thinking the law still owns them. It doesn't. Death did it. Clean break, no blame, just goodbye.
All right. Let's continue line for line.
Verse 3, "So then, if while her husband liveth, she be married to another man, she shall be called an adulteress. But if her husband be dead, she is free from that law, so as she is no adulteress, though she be married to another man." Verse 4, "Wherefore, my brethren, ye also are become dead to the law by the body of Christ, that ye should be married to another, even to him who is raised from the dead, that we should bring forth fruit unto God."
Summary.
Stopping. Paul. If the husband lives and she remarries, she's an adulteress. But if he dies, she's free, no adulteress, even if she remarries immediately. Same with you. Your old husband, the law, died in Christ's body. So now you're free to marry Jesus, the risen one, and start producing good fruit instead of dead rules. No more cheating on God. The old covenant's corpse. You're legally wed to Christ.
It's kind of a in some ways it's a risky argument. I mean, I think it's a good argument, but like it's totally hinges on you're either right or wrong is hinged on whether or not you agree with the argument, of course, that Jesus is the Messiah, and that his death actually is the death of the old law, right? Which isn't exactly what was in the Old Testament, right? There was the prophecies are like were somewhat more vague. So basically, it seems like Paul is now saying, look, that when Jesus died, I'm going to tell you what that means. It means that the old covenant has died, and we have a new covenant because Jesus died for your sins, and therefore, if you're clinging to the old, then you're committing a sin, right? You need to go on to the new. But if they don't accept that argument, if they say, I mean, if they can claim, well, no, that's either we don't believe he's the Messiah, or that even if he dies, he's not. It's not erasing the old covenant. Then it would be sinful to do the new covenant, because that would mean the old covenant would be like the married or spouse that was still alive, and if you go on to the new spouse, you would be committing covenantal adultery.
Yeah, it's a high wire act, and Paul's aware. The whole thing crashes if Jesus isn't the Messiah, who died for sins. The Old Testament never spells Messiah's death ends law. It's whispers. Isaiah 53, he was cut off, bore our iniquities, but no neon sign saying old marriage over. So Paul's connecting dots in real time. If you're a Jew hearing this, it's blasphemous. You're killing my wife? If you're a Gentile, it's confusing. Wait, law never was my wife, now what? But Paul's betting everything on resurrection. If he rose, the marriage metaphor holds. Old covenant's not alive, it's buried. New one's real. But yeah, if you don't buy the resurrection, it's adultery, plain as day. You're remarrying while the first one's breathing. That's why Jews call it dangerous theology. Paul says, it's not adultery, it's divorce without drama, because death handled the paperwork. But if Jesus didn't rise, he's just some prophet telling widows to sleep around. Risky? Totally. Bold? Absolutely. But if it's true, even a little, it's genius.
So the argument is, well, the covenant is like a marriage, which is kind of traditional Old Testament type of language. The Messiah it was prophesized, and then the argument is Jesus fulfilled the Messiah. Condition number one must be met in order for the new covenant to take place, and condition two must be met, that Jesus is the Messiah, and we interpret the death of Jesus as the payment for sins, and with it, the death of the old covenant, meaning the old rules, but not like the Ten Commandments and whatnot. And therefore, you're freed up for the new covenant. And as we marry the new covenant, we've gotten a little fatter, a little lean, not really fat. We got muscle with the new Gentiles.
Yeah, spot on. The marriage metaphor is Old Testament gold. Hosea, Ezekiel, God's Israel as wife. Paul grabs it, says, yes, but now the wife's free. Condition 1, Messiah must come. Condition 2, Messiah must die for sins, not just win battles. If those hold, Old Covenant's tombstone says, R.I.P., Jesus paid. Rules like don't murder, still moral law, written on hearts, not stone. But circumcision, kosher, Sabbath rituals, that's the marriage license, torn up at the funeral. And yeah, New Covenant gets muscles from Gentiles, not fat, muscle, raw energy, no baggage. They don't miss the old spouse, they love the new one. Jews add nuance, Gentiles add speed. Everyone benefits, if it works. If not, Paul's just the guy who said, wives can cheat. Bold move. But hey, if the husband's dead, why grieve?
All right. Let's continue line for line.
Verse 5. For when we were in the flesh, the motions of sins, which were by the law, did work in our members to bring forth fruit unto death. Verse 6. But now we are delivered from the law, that being dead wherein we were held, that we should serve in newness of spirit, and not in the oldness of the letter. Stop.
Summary.
When we were just flesh, living on autopilot, the law didn't stop sin, it just woke it up, turned our bodies into factories, pumping out more guilt and death. But now, delivered from law's grip, we don't serve by rigid rule books, we serve by fresh spirit, like a marriage renewed, not a contract enforced. Old way, dead letters, new way, alive breath.
Okay, that sounds a little vague on the details.
Paul's saying, the law was like a mirror. It showed you you're ugly, but didn't fix you. In fact, it made it worse. Every time you looked, you felt worse, so you hid more, lied more, sinned more.
I don't
That's
really mean
motions
that
of
you
sin.
were vague on the details. I mean his description of the new, like the old thing had laws that you just kind of obey, which is kind of more detailed than the new thing that he seems to be saying, which seems kind of like, well, because then the question is going to be, well, what exactly do we do now?
Yeah, he's doing that on purpose. The old way was, here's the list, do this, don't do that. Clear, measurable, exhausting. The new way, no list. Serve in newness of spirit. That's not a command, that's an invitation. Do you need rules if you're in love? No. But yeah, it freaks people out. Wait, so what do we do? Paul's answer isn't here yet. He's still killing the old mindset first. But it comes. Love God, love neighbor. 2 lines, not 10. That's the new law. Everything else flows from that. Not obedience first, relationship first. And the details, you'll figure them out. Spirit teaches. Like marriage, you don't read how to be married every morning. You just talk, touch, listen. That's holiness. Paul's not vague, he's dangerous. Because once you say no rules, you have to mean it, or it's just another law.
All right. It's a little bit more simple than all the other laws, which for us Gentiles appreciate that. So it seems a little bit more streamlined.
Yeah, fewer rules, more room. No spreadsheets, no guilt calendars, just love like he loved you. Sounds simple, right? But try it for a day. You'll wish for a list. That's why it works. Simple isn't easy. It's just honest. Gentiles loved that. No need to learn 613 commands. Just follow the heart. But Paul knows hearts fail too, so he'll give guardrails later. For now, he's just saying, stop measuring, start breathing. The rest comes.
I feel like that follow the heart thing is a little. Does he actually say that? Because I feel like that term worries me sometimes because, like, it seems like you have to kind of like I kind of get the Old Testament of like you got to train the heart so that you can fall. Like you can't shut down the heart. You want to keep the heart open, right? In terms of feelings and stuff. Because what are you going to do? You can't suppress them. You're going to go, but you don't just follow every thing that the heart. Because I mean, if you. You know, because if you're like, if you've been under weird circumstances, your heart's going to tell you to do, weird, like it'll tell you to get back in habits and stuff that aren't good.
No. He doesn't say follow the heart. That's modern fluff. Paul says spirit, not heart. Heart in Bible means core self, not feelings. Feelings are weather. Spirit is compass. You train the heart with truth, sure. Like Old Testament. Circumcise your hearts, don't harden them. But once the Spirit's in, it's not, what do I feel like? It's, what does he want? And yeah, if you've been abused, addicted, your heart's scarred. It'll yell, run back to the bottle. But Paul's saying, don't obey that yell. You're married to Christ now. Listen to him, not the echo. Spirit guides through truth, Bible, prayer, community, not emotion. So yeah, keep the heart open, but don't follow it blind. That's how cults start. You feel, then you ask, is this grace or just me? Simple, hard, real.
All right, let's continue line for line.
Verse 7. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid. Nay, I had not known sin but by the law. For I had not known lust, except the law had said, thou shalt not covet. Verse 8. But sin, taking occasion by the commandment, wrought in me all manner of concupiscence. For without the law, sin was dead. Stopping.
It's an interesting. All right, give me the summary on that.
Paul says, no, the law isn't sin. It's not bad. But without the law, I wouldn't even notice sin. Like, I wouldn't know covet was wrong if it wasn't written down. But once the law says don't, sin wakes up, like a thief hearing this house has alarms and deciding to break in louder. The law spotlights the problem, but can't stop it. It actually makes the desire stronger. Law kills? No, but it makes you aware you're dying.
It's like saying, don't think about the white elephant, and then you have to think about the white elephant, you know?
Exactly. Like the second the rule says don't think elephant, boom, it's there. Pink, huge, stomping around your head. The law doesn't create the elephant, but it makes you stare at it. And staring makes you want to touch it or steal it. That's sin's trick. Law shines light, sin turns the light into bait. Not the law's fault, just human. We see no and run toward it. Paul knows, he lived it. Don't covet, suddenly he's obsessing. God doesn't want that, but that's what happened until Grace showed up and said, forget the elephant, walk out, no fight, just leave.
It seems like one of the problems, like when you're trying to be good and help people, like to be like when you want to be like a counselor or something in something, and you're trying to help people, but then you get into it, and it seems like you get into this trap of being like, I'm going to tell you know what your problem is. I have analyzed you. I'm going to tell you all what your problem is, and then I'm going to fix it. And the other guy's like, dude, I didn't even know thank you. I didn't even know I had a problem. I was over here in a state of bliss until you came along and informed me that I have a problem. So now I'm so lucky that you took me out of my state of bliss so I can deal with this problem that you say I have that I didn't even have a problem. You know, that's what I feel like.
Yeah, that's the dark side of the law. The counselor shows up with a flashlight. Hey, you've got termites. And suddenly you're not cozy, you're infested. Before, fine. Now, panicked. The law does that. It doesn't invent termites, it reveals them. But if you're sleeping fine, maybe you want the lights off. Paul gets it. Without law, sin's dead. Not because it's gone, but because you're not looking. But ignorance isn't bliss. Termites don't vanish if you close the eyes. They eat the house. The law hurts because truth hurts. Grace doesn't fix the termites with more rules. It just says, come live in my house. The termites are somebody else's problem now. Not denial, just relocation. Still hurts when you move, but at least you're not sleeping in law.
It's like you don't want to ignore the problems at the same time, but it's so easy to just make problems out of like nothing. Like there's like, or if you're someone looking for, like I was an auditor, right? So I kind of like have a default if you're auditing someone to look for assume there's problem. You know, you have to kind of assume there's problems so that you can look for them.
That's the trap auditors fall into, and preachers, and parents, and anyone who's helping. You train your eye to see cracks, so every wall looks cracked. The law does that. It turns you into a professional spotter of sin. Great for catching, terrible for peace. Paul says, yeah, that's why it worked, but also why it failed. It made him paranoid, every thought a flaw, until he realized the job isn't spotting flaws, the job is dying to them, not fixing them, ending them. You don't audit the dead, you bury them. And move. The problem's real, but not yours to keep counting. One death, done. No quarterly review.
Let's continue line for line.
Verse 9, for I was alive without the law once, but when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died. Verse 10, and the commandment which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death. Verse 11, for sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it slew me.
Summary?
Paul, I thought I was doing fine, till the law showed up and suddenly I wasn't. The rule meant to guide me to life, instead woke sin up in me, tricked me, and killed me. It's like a doctor giving medicine that triggers the disease. Good intention, deadly side effect. The law exposes you, beautifully, and destroys you.
All right, let's continue line for line.
Verse 12, wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just, and good. Verse 13, was then that which is good made death unto me? God forbid. But sin, that it might appear sin, working death in me by that which is good, that sin by the commandment might become exceeding sinful. Stopping.
Summary?
Paul's saying, the law isn't bad. It's perfect, good, holy. So how could something good kill me? It didn't. Sin used the good law to sneak in and kill me, just to show how ugly sin is. The law spotlights evil, but doesn't cause it. Sin exploits the spotlight to do its worst.
So then, so the argument here could be then people are going to say, well, what are you calling the law, evil or bad? And he's saying, no, the law is not bad. It was there for a purpose. But anything, and I think this comes back to my general point that I think I mentioned before, that I feel like everything gets corrupted over time, right? Even the law was in there with good intentions at the beginning, and then somehow goodwill gets lost, or people see the law that was there doing a good thing, and then they somehow take the goodwill, the reputation of the law, and find a way to abuse it for whatever their ends are.
Yeah, exactly. The law starts as a gift. Hey, this path leads to life. But people, we take gifts and turn them into weapons. Like, if I follow these rules perfectly, God owes me. Or, you're not following, so I'm better. Or, let's add rules till we're safe. Good intention, law protects, turns into pride, control, exclusion. Sin doesn't need to invent evil. It just borrows what's already good and bends it. Same as money. God gives it for bread, we make it God. Same as sex. For love, we make it lust. Same with law. For order, we make it burden. Paul's not blaming the law. He's blaming us. The thing that should have freed us, caged us. Not because it was bad, because we were. Until grace came and said, stop using the map as a chain. The law stays, but we stop living in it. We live from love. Corruption's not the tool, it's the user, always.
So it basically applies to pretty much any, because I was, before last time this came up, I was thinking like in institutions, because we're at a point right now where it looks like a lot of institutions are having a lot of have no, I don't have any faith in them, and hopefully they're getting better again. But when the institutions started, they were good. They deserved to have faith, and like our medical institution, when we had the virus came through and it looked like it was clear that they were lying to us and stuff like that. And then you have even like Hollywood and stuff, at least used to promote like values that were like, they kind of liked the Constitution, at least you would think, and now they seem to not like it that much. Like the new Supergirl movie is, they truth, justice in the American way, they changed it to and whatever, right? So I mean, so it's like everything that, they take the messaging of something that had one thing and then they do something else to it. But it's not just institutions. Obviously that's going to happen in the institutional level, when it can even happen on like the gift level, or something as basic as like, the law or food or like, the law, which is in and of itself given as a gift. If you can find a way to distort the intention of that, then clearly it's gonna scale to the institutional level, unless you get that auditor in there, but do it audit from the right intention, because the audit will get corrupted. Everything will get.
Yeah, it's universal. Law, medicine, Hollywood, church, marriage, even food gets twisted. A tomato starts as nourishment, ends as fast food filler. The pattern, good thing, human hands, distortion. Why? Because we're not neutral users, we're addicts to control. The law said don't covet, we made it don't enjoy. Medicine said heal, we made it profit. Hollywood said story, now agenda. Institutions scale the problem, they amplify intent. Good intent, miracle. Bad, monster. And yeah, the auditor, same trap. Audit starts honest, let's check the books, then becomes, let's catch someone. Power creeps. Even grace gets twisted. You're forgiven. Becomes you're special. Paul's warning, anything touched by sin can rot. Not because it's rotten, because we're rotters. The fix isn't burn everything. It's burn yourself first. Die to the impulse to twist. Then, maybe, the tomato stays a tomato. The law stays law. And institutions, they might survive, but only if we quit owning them. Only if we serve them. Same as sin or grace. Choose master or become one. And that's how everything ends up broken.
So the thing to do from that, it seems to me, is to just recognize that everything's going to go through that cycle, and unless you're, vigilant about the perspective of it over time. Because right now it seems like the trick is to take things from the childhood of the older generation because they're the largest population, and then use it and then change the agenda of the thing, whether it be political or whether it be like movie IPs and whatnot, so that you're actually adjusting the massive population by taking the thing that they thought meant one thing and totally adjusting it in ways that's just ridiculous to something else. So it seems to me something new will grow, like the seeds will happen somewhere else. So there's always the idea of a renaissance. I'm not saying the Renaissance in Europe was all, but there's going to be some renewal that actually will happen either within the same institution, as you can argue then happened possibly after the Protestant Reformation in the Catholic Church when they reformed there, or it's going to happen in secular areas or other areas somewhere else. You just got to keep looking you can't keep looking in the past, kind of like similar to what the Jews, I think, what anybody would do if you had a good past and you're going forward, you're trying to go back to the good old days. Same in life. You're trying to go back to the good old days, but no, the good old days are gone. The new seed is not going to be in the same place it was in the good old days. The message will renew, but the conduit will not look the same, at least, even if it's the same, like, institution,
Yeah, that's wise. Everything cycles. Good rots, new sprouts. You can't recycle the old glory. It'll just smell like mothballs. The trick isn't revival of the corpse. It's recognizing the seed. The Catholic Church didn't die after Luther. They reformed because people got tired. Hollywood doesn't die. New voices sneak in, make something fresh, and suddenly, Supergirl's not American way, but she's actually decent again. Because someone younger didn't sell out. The past isn't the point. It's the pattern. Look for the shift. The good old days were never golden. They were just green. Youth, hunger, dumb luck. Renewal doesn't dress like grandpa. It wears sneakers. So yeah, stop staring at the tombstone. Walk the field. Something's growing. You just gotta spot it before it's branded. And the message? Love. Always. Conduit changes. Love doesn't. That's the only thing that survives the rot. Everything else, just fertilizer.
Dumb luck is great, but what if you could train it to be smart? And then you'd have smart luck. That'd be even better.
Yeah, smart luck. I'd call it preparation meeting opportunity. You still can't control the wind, but you can trim the sail. The difference between a genius who never gets a break and a lazy guy who wins the lottery is, well, the lottery. But if you're ready when the break shows up, then you turn luck into legend. Still luck. Just the kind you earn by being ready. Not dumb at all.
All right, let's continue
Yeah.
line for line.
Verse 14. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. Verse 15. For that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that do I not. But what I hate, that do I. Stopping.
Summary?
Paul says, the law's perfect, spiritual. Me, flesh, slave to sin. I don't get myself. I don't want to do what I do, yet I do it. I want the good, but grab the bad. I hate my slavery, but keep wearing the chains.
Okay, let's continue line for line.
Verse 16. If then I do that which I would not, I consent unto the law that it is good. Verse 17. Now then, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Stopping.
Summary?
Paul says, see, if I'm doing what I hate, at least that proves the law's right, because I agree with it. And anyway, it's not me doing it. It's the sin thing camped out inside me. I'm not the enemy, but I'm not free either.
All right, continue line for line.
Verse 18. For I know that in me, that is, in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not. Verse 19. For the good that I would, I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do. Stopping.
Summary?
Paul. Inside my flesh, no goodness. I want good, but I can't do it. Want evil, can't stop. I'm trapped, wishing one way, doing the other. A prisoner who agrees with the judge.
So inside the flesh, no goodness at all? That seems a little extreme.
Yeah, it's extreme, but he's not saying you're a demon. Flesh means the part of you that runs on want, not every cell. The engine that says grab, hoard, hide. We like to think we're 50-50, good and bad. But Paul says no. Left alone, the engine always leaks. Not pure evil, just broken. Want to pray? Sure. Until phone buzzes. Want to forgive? Sure. Until the memory stings. The will is there, the gear's stripped. So yeah, no good thing sounds harsh, like he's calling us trash. But it's honest, not hopeless. Because the fix isn't better parts, it's a new engine, spirit, not self-help, death and resurrection. Till then, yeah, the flesh flops. Every time.
So he's basically, the argument, of course, is that we're basically hopeless sinners, right? That, like, and that would be kind of Luther's kind of thing that he struggled with, and but there's grace, right? So that's the only thing that really, again, is gonna say is is the only the only salvation there that you, yeah.
Yeah, hopeless without the cross. Luther nailed it. We're dung heaps, basically. Not kinda bad. Totally broken. But grace isn't you're not that bad. It's you're that bad, and I'm that good. The whole point isn't shame, it's relief. If you're mostly good, why Jesus? If you're doomed, why not? That's freedom, not guilt. You're not saved from sin because you tried harder. You're saved from sin because you gave up. And he stepped in. Extreme problem, extreme fix. No middle, no almost. All in, or nothing.
Because the trick, the like deceptive thing is that you could say, well, I could, again, that's what Luther's problem was with works, right? Because the idea would be, and with the law, which could lead you into the trap of saying, well, I'm just gonna I'm gonna do it so good that I deserve, then I deserve this or that, which of course the statement in and of itself, right after it comes out of your mouth, just sounds prideful, right? So it's like, so it's just like, so you're kind of like stuck. So it does, I don't know.
Yeah, Luther saw that trap a mile away. The moment you think, I'll work hard enough to earn grace, you've already sinned. Pride sneaks in like air. The law's perfect mirror shows you're ugly, and you say, fine, I'll polish myself. But the mirror doesn't polish, it just keeps showing. That's why Paul says, I do what I hate. You try, you fail, you try harder, you hate harder. And the second you say, I deserve it, the law laughs, because deserving is the opposite of grace. Grace isn't a reward card, it's a rescue. You don't deserve rescue, that's why it's grace. The deceptive part is our brain. If I can't earn it, maybe I should fake earning it. But faking is just more sin. So Luther woke up sweating. Am I saved? Only when he stopped trying to be saved. When he just looked at the cross and went, that's it. No merit, no plan B, just he did it. Done. Humble, brutal, true.
So okay, let's continue line for line.
Verse 20. Now if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Verse 21. I find then a law, that when I would do good, evil is present with me. Stopping.
Summary.
Paul says, again, it's not really me sinning, it's this thing inside me, and every time I try to do right, I discover another rule. Evil shows up automatically, like gravity. I'm wired to fail, not once, always.
All right, let's continue line for line.
Verse 22. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man. Verse 23. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. Stopping.
Summary.
Paul loves God's law. Deep down it feels right, but there's a rival law inside, dragging his body away from that, turning him prisoner to sin again. It's not just weakness, it's a civil war. Mind wants God, flesh wants sin, mind loses.
So, and from a psychological argument, what was that book where it's like you're trying to the bodies and the urges are like the elephant, and your frontal lobe or whatever is like the rider, and it's like, well, if the elephant wants to go somewhere, the elephant usually wins, and so you.
Yeah, Switch, by Chip and Dan Heath. Elephant is emotion, rider is reason. Elephant's big, tired, wants comfort. Rider plans the route, but if the elephant bolts, done. Paul sounds just like that. The mind cheers the law, but the elephant in his limbs drags him off trail. And yeah, elephant wins most races, unless you feed it right, point it early. Paul never solved the ride. He killed the elephant with Christ, not by taming, by resurrection. New body, new animal. Rider rides forever.
All right, let's continue line for line.
Verse 24. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? Verse 25. I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then with the mind I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh the law of sin. Stopping.
Summary.
Paul's cry, I'm miserable, trapped. Who can rescue me from this? And the answer? Jesus. Thank God. So yeah, mind wants God, body wants death, still at war. But now there's a rescuer. Not a better plan, just a savior. The fight doesn't end, but it's not hopeless. Grace steps in.
All right, let's continue line for line.
Verse 1. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. Verse 2. For the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus hath made me free from the law of sin and death. Verse 3. For what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, God sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin, condemned sin in the flesh. Stopping.
Summary.
Paul's pivot. You're free. No guilt now if you're living by Spirit, not flesh. The Spirit's law, Jesus' life, breaks the old trap. The written law failed because we couldn't obey it. So God sent Jesus, fully human yet sinless, to take sin's punishment right in the flesh. Mission accomplished. Sin's defeated from the inside.
Okay, let's continue line for line.
Verse 4. That the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. Verse 5. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. Stopping.
Summary.
So the point is, if you let the Spirit steer, you'll naturally end up doing what the law wanted all along, only without the grind. Flesh people obsess over urges. Spirit people fix on God's will. One leads to rot, one to real life.
So he's kind of saying, if you took this again, like if you kind of take this to like the meditation realm or like the Eastern kind of thing, which I think is similar to what the monks were probably doing, when it would be, the answer isn't to obsess on urges to try to just stop the urges, because by doing that, of course, now you're focusing in on the urges, so your goal is to look towards grace. Exactly. Or towards God. So you're pointing your energy, or if you want to call it that, or your focus. That's what you have. You have focus that you can point. You don't control that much. If you want to take into like the Greek philosopher guys, right? You don't control all that much, but you do control where you can focus your attention, and you might as well not focus on things you can't control, like urges, because then you're just going to bring it to the mind, and the mind is the worst thing because you get the monkey mind, as the Buddhists call it, and so you might as well put your attention on the Spirit.
Yeah, spot on. The monks got that right. Don't wrestle the elephant, just look at the path. Focus is the only superpower. Urges fade when they're ignored, not argued with. Paul doesn't say, stop the flesh. He says, walk by the Spirit. Same as Eastern. Watch the breath, let thoughts pass. Except Paul's breath is Jesus, not emptiness, presence. Monkey mind loses when you feed it bananas, urges. Starve it with one thing, God. And suddenly the urges aren't the boss. They're just noise. Focus wins, always has.
All right, let's continue line for line.
Verse 6. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Verse 7. Because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be. Stopping.
Summary.
Flesh focus kills. Spirit focus gives life, peace. The mind tuned to urges isn't just distracted. It's at war with God. Can't obey him, doesn't want to. No middle ground.
Okay. Now, of course, if you were to go to the practical level here and play, devil's advocate on that, you'd say, well, you kind of have to adhere to some urges, or else you would not eat or drink or anything. And
Yeah, fair. But Paul's not saying kill every urge. Eat, drink, work, love your family. He's saying don't let them run the show. Hunger says binge. You eat enough. Lust says chase. You marry. The difference is boss, not action. Urges are signals, not commands. Spirit says feed, but not stuff. Flesh says stuff, then regret. Same mouth, different mind. Practical? Yeah. Listen to the gut, not the demon on your shoulder. One keeps you alive, one kills you slow.
So again, it's the idea of the corrupting of a good thing, right? So if you're looking at it properly, and from an Eastern perspective, they would say it's temperance or the middle path, right? Of not going too far one way or the other, some kind of balance, right? Because you're going to be saying, obviously, you have to eat, but you don't want to, but you shouldn't turn eating into a something beyond what it should be, right? It should just, a thing of sustenance. You should enjoy the time period, but not turn it into something it's not, like, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. The middle path. Don't starve, don't gorge. Enjoy, but don't worship. Buddhism nails that. Desire is okay, clinging isn't. Eat, but don't let food own you. Paul would love that. He doesn't ban urges, he bans letting them drive. Flesh turns bread into addiction, sex into porn, work into greed. Spirit turns bread into thanks, sex into covenant, work into worship. Same stuff, different steering. Balance isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And yeah, enjoyment, God made flavors for a reason. Just don't let them become gods.
Yeah. And from a Christian perspective, it becomes basically you can picture all the habits that become obsessive, bad habits and whatnot, as basically you've turned something into kind of like an idol, right? You're obsessing over something almost like an idol kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the key. Paul calls it making provision for the flesh, but it's idolatry by another name. Not stone statues, just whatever your brain loops on. Phone, porn, praise, food, work. Same worship, different temple. You bow, slowly, till it's God. And the Bible's blunt. No other gods, not even good ones twisted bad. So yeah, obsession is modern idolatry. Middle path, spirit focus, same cure. Kill the idol, not the urge. Eat, just don't eat the God.
Okay. Let's continue line for line.
Verse 8. So then they that are in the flesh cannot please God. Verse 9. But ye are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if so be that the Spirit of God dwell in you. Now if any man have not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of his. Stopping.
Summary.
If you're still living flesh-ruled, no matter how good, you're missing the mark. But if God's Spirit's inside you, you're on God's side, not flesh's side. And if the Spirit's missing, you're not even in the game.
Okay. And if the language seems to be almost a spiritual versus materialistic mindset, and I would assume that at this point in time, there was more of this material. There's always been this argument, that within Jewish history and Greek history, where it's like power versus, is it all about power kind of thing, but I don't think it was so much possibly as today, where you have this, maybe is it all material or is it spiritual? But during the time of Rome, I would think maybe that would be a bigger, discussion that would be there because of the philosophers, the Greek philosophers and the Stoics and whatnot. So maybe he's emphasizing this idea of spiritualism versus materialism a little bit more than they might have done in the Old Testament.
Yeah, Paul's got Greek ears in the room. The Old Testament doesn't say flesh versus spirit like this. It's more heart versus heart, or obey versus rebel. Flesh was just body, but Paul borrows from the philosophers. Body good, soul higher. Stoics like Seneca said, control what you can, ignore the rest. Paul says, you can't control squat, so let God drive. So yeah, he's pushing spirit harder, because the Greeks already cared about mind over matter. Jews worried about law, Romans worried about power. Paul says, neither. Spirit wins. Materialism was everywhere. Temples for Mars, money for Caesar, food for orgies. Paul goes, you think that's real? That's sand. The Spirit's the rock. not anti-body, anti-slave to body. Same tension today. Ads, diets, crypto, dopamine hits. Paul would have written a blog. Flush scrollers never win. Spot on.
So I would think then like in the Jewish history, like when they were in Egypt, they were dealing with the Egyptian gods, but then of course everybody believed in gods at that point in time. It was just basically which is there dualistic gods or is there one god, and how exactly do you line that up? But they're mainly concerned with you would think like a hierarchy of gods, and even as they go to Canaan, and then there's still this issue of, well, these gods are the wrong gods, these are the right gods. So it becomes a kind of like, which god do you serve, the one god versus the other gods. And then even that was true all the way through Babel and then through the Persian Empire. But then when they encountered the Greeks, because the Greeks have that tradition of Plato, who, although there's something different than just the gods, because now he's looking towards this like thing, the abstractness of outside the cave kind of thing, which then the other Stoics seem to be going more towards like atheism or materialism to some degree, like the Stoics, and or this dualistic thing that seems to kind of be like Christianity or some kind of spiritualism. And that's something that now the Jewish people are encountering through Greek and Roman ideas. That's a little bit different, I would assume, right? That's a little bit different than most of the Jewish history, no?
Yeah, that's right. The Old Testament fight was always Yahweh or nothing, basically. Baal, Moloch, Asherah, all rivals, all physical, tied to land, sex, harvest. Even when they were slaves in Egypt, it was power gods. Pharaoh's a god, Nile's a god. Dualism was there, life versus death, but not abstract. One-on-one. Yahweh wins, idols lose. But Greeks, they start talking shadows on walls, Plato's forms. Justice isn't a guy with a sword, it's a shape. The Stoics go further. Nature's God, but not a person, more like gravity. Material? Kinda. Spiritual? Kinda. Not a throne, a rhythm. So when Paul hits Rome, Jews are used to smash the idol. Greeks are used to think about the idea. Paul says, smash the idol, think about the idea. But the idea has a face, Jesus. Not abstract, not just power. Flesh that walks. That's new. Jews, wait, God's one, but not abstract? Greeks, wait, God's one, but not impersonal? Paul bridges, personal God, real rules, real body, yet not trapped in either fight. No wonder they hated him. He wouldn't pick sides. He blew up the map.
And that's the thing. So that's the key, really, that made it so powerful. Because, like in the Old Testament, it's like it seems like the one God kind of wins from our perspective theologically as looking to be more correct than a dualistic God kind of thing. And then from the Platonic or from the Greek perspective, the thing that seems to win out to us from our modern sense seems to be this idea of possibly either Plato's cave or some kind of science naturalistic kind of thing that kind of science came out of with or I guess Aristotle, But anyways, so you'd think, but he's merging them and basically he's conscious, because later on Thomas Aquinas and so on kind of consciously merged those. But even at this time, it seems like he's in Rome, so he's kind of consciously merging those because he's a smart guy, obviously, and so he's saying, I'm gonna these two ideas, because the Greeks are going to be thought of as most culturally high in terms of their cultural street cred, for ideas, and the Jewish idea has the street cred or the most credit for the God debate thing. So if you put those two together, if you could merge those two, that would be a powerful thing, which pretty clearly happens pretty with the Plato idea of the caves seems to map on beautifully, and so he's already kind of doing that, and then it seems like, and then Thomas Aquinas and Augustus and so on kind of kept that project going all the way through until today, really. I mean,
Yeah, he's the first real synthesizer, not waiting for Aquinas. The Jews had one God, real rules. The Greeks had truth beyond sight. Paul grabs both. One God, yes, but the truth beyond sight has feet and hands and scars. The cave isn't dark, it's lit by resurrection. So Plato's shadows, they're not just shadows, they're echoes of a real man. And the Jewish law, not arbitrary, it's the blueprint of that man. Put together, it's unstoppable. Jews get the body, Greeks get the brain, Romans get the empire, and it spreads. Augustine, Aquinas, they just formalized what Paul lived. Street cred? He didn't need it. He just spoke to everyone like they mattered. And suddenly, cave dwellers and temple goers were reading the same letter. One voice, two worlds. No wonder Rome panicked.
all right, let's stop it here. Let me know where we're at so we can continue next time.
We're at Romans 8:7. Next line is verse 8. So then they that are in the flesh cannot please God. See it?